How could there have been so much apparent misunderstanding as to the reason for the forum? Some quarters have blamed the media for its reporting in the lead up to the forum, causing the belief that it was about conversions out of Islam and the repeal of Article 1211A. Certainly there seems to be bad blood, as it were, between Muslim NGOs and the Bar Council, caused by the Council's stand in issues pertaining to conversions, freedom of religion, the Article 11 grouping, and cases such as Lina Joy.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Saudara-saudara yang saya hormati sekalian, pertamanya saya mengucapkan kesyukuran pada pagi ini di atas nama umat Islam. Kita menghimpun pada pagi ini untuk menentang suatu forum yang secara terang-terangan mencabar kedudukan Islam dan umat Islam dalam negara kita.
I don't think the forum was disputing Article 121 and I don't think it was challenging the Sharia court or the status of Islam. So really I do not understand on what grounds these people were making their protest.
Dato', regarding the so-called controversial forum, law reform, conversion to Islam, Article 121A, or the Federal Constitution, Subashini and Shamla raised that, and the response by the Muslim NGOs. Could you just tell us what was the reason behind having the forum, and whether you think that it sort of, were you shocked by the reactions from the NGOs?
Well, I will certainly start by saying I was shocked by the reactions from the NGOs. If you recall, earlier in the year, the Prime Minister had, and I think this was in April, the Prime Minister had actually made an announcement that amendments will be made to the Law Reform, Marriage and Divorce Act and other legislation to deal with, specifically with the issue of conversions. And one of the suggestions by the Prime Minister at that time was that they will have to provide for certain rules or regulations so that the person who is converting to Islam will be required to inform his family, because we were coming across several situations where the family members never knew when a person converted, and a lot of the problems arose because of that. So that is something that has already been in the public domain. The whole issue about 121A is also in the public domain. So we were hoping, in fact, for a long time, that the legislation to deal with this situation would happen soon. And in fact, more than a year ago, we had several closed-door meetings which the Attorney General's chambers had organized. Closed-door meetings in relation to this issue, where we actually discussed amendments to the legislation. So, and then at some point we heard that the legislation was going to come up. It never did. So we're now into August, September, October, and nothing had happened. So that was the reason why we wanted to raise this issue. We also know that the problems continue. We also wanted to discuss, as lawyers, the legal issues that arose out of the cases that are mentioned there, Shamla's case and Subashini's case, the legal issues that arose out of the two jurisdictions, the jurisdictional issues relating to the civil courts as well as the Sharia courts, and how we can resolve these issues. So that was our intention, and in fact we also invited a couple of people who actually had problems as a result of the fact that these issues are not resolved. So they came to tell their story. It was a very human situation. They were actually giving us their stories as to how they had suffered, simply because the law is uncertain. So the purpose of this forum was to try and find solutions, to actually hear firsthand what these problems were, and to see whether we could come up with some kind of solutions. It was also to highlight the fact that something had to be done.
So if it was law that was to be discussed and not religion, why was there such an outpouring of anger by the Muslim protesters?
I believe it is because there was a gross misunderstanding about what the forum was about. It was not helped by the fact that people deliberately labelled it anti-this or anti-that without being clear about what the forum was about. So what they did was they labelled it anti-Islam, and then the papers went, certain of the press went to town on it. Many people grabbed that, and that's how they created the anxiety over the forum. But if they had just stopped for a minute, if people had been responsible and stopped for a minute and looked at the program, they would have seen that there was nothing that was of concern.
Could the title of the forum have a lot to do with it? For example, it says, what was it?
Yes.
Conversion to Islam. You know, is that a bit? That could be
misunderstood. Well, I have been. People have said this to me. I take their point. I mean, these are things we will take into account next time we have to organize something like this. But I think people shouldn't blame the title. It's really silly, because if it is just the title alone, then they should have taken the trouble when we explained the content. They should have taken the trouble to find out what it was about. If they're going to make such a huge fuss, if people were going to demonstrate, they should have been clear what they were demonstrating about. But I suspect a lot of the people who were there didn't totally understand what it was about. We were never going to discuss the religion. We are not qualified to discuss any religion. Not Islam, not Christianity, we're not qualified. So we only want to discuss the law.
Pertamanya kita membantah keras forum ini kerana forum ini mempertikaikan kedudukan mahkamah syariah yang telah diperuntukkan dengan jelas di dalam perlembagaan di bawah artikel 1211A, dan keputusan Mahkamah Persekutuan sendiri di dalam kes Azli Najala ini telah menyamatarafkan mahkamah syariah dengan mahkamah sivil dari segi bidang kuasa masing-masing. Kecubaan Majlis Peguam hari ini untuk mengupas kes Subashini dan Syamala menunjukkan mereka tidak menghormati keputusan Mahkamah Persekutuan dan tidak menghormati langsung peruntukan perlembagaan persekutuan.
One of the objections, this was by Zulkifli Nordin. He sort of suggested that the Bar Council in doing this forum of 9th August did not respect the Sharia Court or the Federal Constitution. So, I mean, what is your view to his statement?
Oh, that I think he obviously misunderstood the nature of the forum. I think I caught a glimpse of that interview with Zul. This forum was about what happens to a non-Muslim family when one member converts to Islam. And it's a very real problem, and it's a very real problem facing lots and lots of non-Muslims. We saw that from the attendance. People were there because they wanted to learn. And the Bar Council, this was organized by the Family Law Committee. So it was to deal with family law. And the Bar Council, I think, did a very good job in getting a very well-balanced panel of speakers. They had me, and they had Hanif, the two lawyers, two of the lawyers on either side in the Subashini case. They had Ravi Neku, okay? So that was two people from the non-Muslim community and Hanif so far, who is a lawyer in private practice, but he was going to represent the views of the people of the Islamist perspective. Then you had JAKIM representative, Jabatan Kemajuan Islam Malaysia, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And he's actually a former judge, now a prosecutor, Haji Naim. And you had somebody from IKIM, the Institute of Islamic Understanding. So it was a very well-balanced panel, actually.